Students, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video lecture, we are going to solve some random 8-9 questions related to air regulations. We are going to touch on questions related to aerodrome lighting, aerodrome markings, some other air regulations questions. So let's start with question number 1 for today, which will be this. The primary purpose of runway end identifier lights installed at many airfields is to provide what? Runway end identifier light. So what is the purpose of runway end identifier light? So these are your two runway end identifier lights. This is your runway. These are your threshold lights. These two row of lights are nothing but your approach lights. And these are your PAPI lights. This is your approach path indicator. And these two corner white lights, the flashing white lights are your runway end identifier lights. So they indicate the approach end of the runway. If you are using an airport diagram, you will, so over here, this may not be visible to you, but I'll attach the PDF of this lecture in the description box of this video. Then you can download that and zoom it and see. So on the bottom left corner, there are two runways in this airport. Okay, at this airport there are two runways. And if there is a runway end identifier light located on a particular side of the runway, that information is printed over here. So runway end identifier light on runway 01 and 19er and runway 32 next. So it's there. So it's given. That information is also given to you so that whenever you come, then if you're coming, this airport is new to you and you're coming there at for the first time, you know how to identify a particular runway by looking at this runway end identifier lights. So a rapid identification of the approach end of the runway during reduced visibility, warning of the final 3000 feet of runway remaining as viewed from the takeoff position, rapid identification of the primary runway during reduced visibility. So correct answer is option A. Identification of the approach end of the runway during low visibility. Option Bravo is wrong. A warning of the final 3000 feet remaining. So you have this runway centerline lights. The starting centerline lights will be white in color. This white lights will be followed by alternate red, red and white lights, and then that will be followed by fixed red lights. So that row of red centerline lights towards the end of the runway, where the runway is approaching to its end, or where the runway is coming, is going to end. So that row of red centerline lights indicates that the pilot is going to approach the end of the runway very soon. Okay, so that is the center line, that is the work of center line. Okay, runway center line lights, not the runway end identifier lights. Rapid identification of the primary runway during reduced visibility. So not all primary runways on the airport, not all runways may be having or will be having runway end identifier lights. Okay, so option C is not is not accurate. So the most accurate is option A, rapid identification of the approach end of the runway. In what conditions? Low conditions, low visibility conditions. Next. Which type of runway lighting consists of a pair of synchronized flashing lights, one on each side of the runway threshold? So similar to question number 1. So synchronized, that means both are coordinated, both will flash at the same time. Okay, one on each side of the runway threshold. So here you see this is your runway threshold. One on each side of that threshold you have two white lights, two white synchronized flashing lights. They are called runway end identifier lights. Now what is rail? Rail is runway alignment indicator lights. What is HIRL? High intensity runway lights. High intensity runway lights. Now runway alignment indicator lights are these lights. this approach lighting system, okay, which lead to the runway. Okay, so runway alignment indicator lights. Next, what are high intensity runway lights? Those are runway edge lights, this white lights. So that are high intensity runway lights. Okay, let's go to next question. Question 3. Which runway marking indicates a displaced threshold on an instrument runway? Very important. I have covered this question in previous quiz lectures also. So a displaced threshold will be indicated by this marking. The center line of the runway, which are white center lines, though they get converted into this arrows. Okay, and this arrows will be pointing towards the displaced threshold. Now this is your entire runway. The beginning of the runway begins at this location. Okay, so this should be your threshold. Okay, the runway should ideally start from here, but they have not designated this beginning portion of the runway as the threshold. Instead, uh, uh, they have put the threshold somewhat some distance ahead of this, and this becomes a displaced threshold. So all our landings will happen beyond this threshold, not before it. So although the runway starts here, the threshold of the runway is considered to be starting from here. Okay, you can still use this portion for maneuvering your aircraft for takeoff, taxi, but not for landing. Okay, so a displaced threshold is indicated by arrows pointing towards that threshold. Okay, so these arrows are pointing towards this displaced threshold. Arrows leading to the threshold mark is the correct answer. Centerline dashes starting at the threshold. Starting at the threshold. So these are the centerline dashes starting at the threshold means the center of the runway like this. So that happens beyond the threshold, not before it. So option Bravo is eliminated. Red chevron marks in the non-landing portion of the runway. So that is again wrong. So red chevron marks, the yellow chevrons actually. So this indicates unusable area. So this portion of the runway will be unusable. Okay. So that portion of the runway can still be used for stopways or as blast pads, but not for any other thing. Okay. So displaced threshold is shown by arrows leading to the threshold mark. Question number 4. What is the rule for a pilot receiving lasso clearance, land and hold shot clearance? So this concept is very important, land and hold shot. So we will read some things and then we will answer this question. So it will be a quick revision. If you already know what a land and hold shot operations are, if you don't know, you will learn it now. So read this. So yeah. So LASSO. LASSO is the abbreviation or an acronym for land and hold short operations. These operations include landing and holding short of an intersecting runway. Very important. So intersecting runway. So two runways may be intersecting, okay, intersecting each other, and on both on those runways, both the runways, there may be operations going on. From one runway, there are landings happening on one runway. On the second runway, there may be takeoffs happening. Okay, intersecting runway, intersecting taxiway. Okay, so one runway, there is an intersection between a runway and a taxiway or some other designated point on a runway other than an intersecting runway or taxiway. Pilot's responsibilities and basic procedures. LASSO is an air traffic control procedure that requires pilot participation. Okay, so it works both ways, 50-50. Okay, ATC as well as pilot. So pilot's participation, pilot's agreement is needed to balance the needs for increased airport capacity, air traffic, aerodrome traffic, system efficiency consistent with safety. Okay, so it's the responsibility of ATC and pilot, both ATC and pilot, to balance system efficiency or to accommodate more and more traffic in a particular airspace, but keeping in mind safety first. This procedure can be done safely provided pilots and controllers are knowledgeable and understand their responsibilities. Pilot must be aware of his responsibilities. ATC controller must take care of his responsibilities. The following paragraphs outline specific pilot operator responsibilities when conducting LASO at controlled airports like control class B airport, class C, class Delta. Air traffic may clear a pilot to land and hold short. Pilots may accept. That means it is up to the pilot to accept the clearance or to decline it. So pilot may accept such a clearance provided the pilot in command, that is the commander, determines that aircraft can safely land and stop within the available landing distance. Okay. So the pilot will accept that lasso clearance only and only when the pilot in command determines or is of the opinion that the plane will be able to land safely on the runway and come to a full stop before the next intersection or before the intersection, where the intersection between two runways or one runway and taxiway is happening. So look at this figure. So if this plane, so there are lasso operations going on. There is a plane landing on this runway, another plane landing here. So it is the responsibility of this pilot in command to determine before accepting lasso clearance that he will be able to land on this runway and hold short before this holding point. Okay, because if he doesn't, if he thinks he's not, he won't be able to hold short before this holding point and he will overshoot it. So he will, in that case, he will decline the lasso clearance given by ATC. Okay, if he accepts that lasso clearance, he must hold short before this point. If he doesn't do that, the plane coming from this side of the runway, okay, will pose a safety hazard. Okay, so it is from the point of view of safety, this pilot must stop before this holding point. Otherwise, may be a collision hazard from aircraft coming on this runway, landing on this runway. Okay, so that's why at controlled airports, air traffic may clear a pilot to land and hold short. Pilots may accept such a clearance provided that PIC determines that aircraft can safely land and stop within the available landing distance. Available landing distance data are published in chart supplements in any other publication according to your country. Controllers will also provide available landing distance data upon request. If you do not have the data with you do not have that particular supplement, that book, that chart, you can request that available landing distance information from the ETC controller and he will provide it to you. Student pilots or pilots not familiar with this lasso operations should not participate in the program. Okay, it's not for the student pilot, it's not for inexperienced pilot. The pilot in command has the final authority to accept or decline any land and hold short clearance. The safety and operation of aircraft remain the responsibility of the pilot. Okay, so the pilot is responsible for this, for the safety and operation of aircraft. Pilots are expected to decline a lasso clearance if they determine it will compromise safety. After accepting lasso clearance, you come to a conclusion or you realize that this lasso clearance is not going to go down very well or is not going to be executed successfully. You can, at any point of time, you can decline or you can cancel that lasso clearance. Safety first. To conduct lasso, pilots should become familiar with all available information concerning land and hold short at their destination airport. Pilots should have readily available published data of landing distance, runway slope information. If it's a down slope, if the runway you're going to land has a down slope, you will take some more time to stop your aircraft, right? An upslope runway will enable your aircraft to stop much earlier, but a downslope runway will increase your landing distance. So you have to remember the runway slope, the runway contamination as well. Okay. Additionally, knowledge about landing performance data, like I said, permits the pilot to readily determine that the available landing distance for the assigned runway is sufficient for safe lasso. As part of a pilot's pre-flight planning process, pilots should determine if their destination airport has lasso or not. So, as a part of your pre-flight planning process, you should ascertain whether your destination airport has this provision or not. If so, the pre-flight planning process should include an assessment of which lasso combinations which would work for them given the aircraft's required landing distance. Explore possibilities. If your destination airport has this provision of lasso, So include this possibility in your pre-flight planning. Okay. Good pilot decision making is knowing in advance whether one can accept a lasso clearance if offered. So good pilot decision making. So you should know beforehand, much before you go to your destination airport. I suggest in your pre-flight planning process itself, whether you're going to accept this lasso clearance or not, whether there is any probability of you're going to accept this lasso clearance or not. So that is a sign of good pilot decision making. You come to know you are able to anticipate or predict the future. Okay, so over here you can see this diagram. Here this diagram, this is the runway and this is the taxiway. So there is an intersection between the runway and the taxiway. So aircraft cleared to land and hold short will hold short before this holding point. This taxiing aircraft meanwhile will continue taxiing on this particular taxiway. Okay, so it is risky, so it should be executed in good visibility conditions. Mature experienced pilots should conduct these operations. Land and hold short at a designated point on runway other than an intersecting runway or taxiway. If for any reason such as difficulty in discerning the location of a lasso intersection, okay, wind conditions, aircraft conditions, the pilot elects to request to land on the full length of the runway, to land on another runway or to decline lasso, a pilot is expected to promptly inform air traffic. In case you are having a gut feeling that you're not after accepting lasso clearance, you won't be able to execute it properly or successfully. You should promptly inform air traffic controller of your inability, ideally even before the clearance is issued. Okay. A lasso clearance once accepted must be adhered to just as any other ATC clearance unless an amended clearance is obtained for an emergency occurs. A lasso clearance doesn't preclude a rejected landing. So once you accept a lasso clearance, stick to that clearance. If you want any modification in that clearance, inform your intentions to ATC traffic controller. You will get a new amended clearance and then you can continue your next flight, or you can continue your flight with in relation to that new amended clearance or on the basis of that new amended clearance. A lasso clearance doesn't preclude a rejected landing. Just because you have accepted a lasso clearance doesn't mean that you are bound to land that aeroplane on the runway. If you want to go around, if you want to conduct a misapproach, you are allowed to do that. A pilot who accepts a lasso clearance should land and exit the runway at the first convenient taxiway before reaching the hold short point. Otherwise, the pilot must stop and hold at the hold short point. If a rejected landing becomes necessary after accepting a lasso clearance, the pilot should maintain safe separation from other aircraft, vehicles, and should promptly notify the controller. As soon as possible, communicate to ATC. Controllers need a full readback of all lasso clearances. So whenever ATC controller clears you for lasso operation, you must give a full readback of that particular clearance. Pilot should read back the lasso clearance and include the words hold short of particular runway, hold short of particular taxiway, hold short of any other particular designated point. This hold short of something is very important phrase in their acknowledgement of all lasso clearances. In order to reduce frequency congestion, pilots are encouraged to read back lasso clearance without prompting. Don't make controller have to ask for a readback. Okay, so we always, whenever we receive a clearance, be it lasso clearance, any other clearance, we always give a readback. So continue that practice. Okay, stick to that practice. Lasso situational awareness. Situational awareness is vital to the success of lasso. Okay, you have to be situationally aware because since lasso operation means two aeroplanes landing on two different runways which are intersecting each other, one airplane landing, another taking off from the intersecting runway, one airplane landing, another taxiing on intersection runway and taxiway. So you have to be situationally aware who is where, okay, what aircraft is where with respect to your position. Any vehicle can be around you. So situational awareness starts with having current airport information in the cockpit, meaning You must have airport chart with you. You must be familiar with that airport surroundings. Readily accessible to the pilot. Okay. Situational awareness includes effective pilot-controller radio communication. ATC expects pilots to specifically acknowledge and read back all LASO clearances as follows. So they have given the example, a situation of readback clearances. Next, for those aeroplanes flown with two crew members, effective intra-cockpit communication, that means communication between the two pilots, first officer, commander, and cockpit crew members, if there are any other crew member, okay, any crew member in the observer seat. So that is also critical. There have been several instances where the pilot working the radios accepted a lasso clearance. Okay, so the one who is executing the duties of a pilot monitoring. So he has ATC communications with him. So situations have happened, instances have happened where the pilot working the radios, on the radios, communicating with ATC, accepted a lasso clearance, but simply forgot to inform the pilot flying. Okay. So if the commander is flying and first officer is communicating with ATC, it is the responsibility of pilot communicating with ATC to inform the pilot flying, okay, of the clearance given by the ATC, or to inform the pilot flying of any situation that is developing. So that is very important. If you forget that, there will be a misunderstanding between in the cockpit, and again between the ATC and you as a pilot. Situational awareness also includes a thorough understanding of airport markings, signs, lightings associated with land and hold shot. This visual aids consist of a three-part system of yellow hold shot markings, red and white signs, and in certain cases pavement lighting. So you can see here in the diagram, you have this yellow color hold shot markings. Okay, you will have this red and white color signs, pavement lighting in some cases. So you must be aware of those aerodrome signs, aerodrome markings. Visual aids assist the pilot in determining where to hold shot. So next, pilot should only receive a lasso clearance, very important, when there is a minimum ceiling of 1000 feet and 3 statute mile visibility. The intent of having basic VFR weather conditions is to allow pilots to maintain visual contact with other aircraft, with other ground vehicles. Pilots should consider the effects of prevailing winds, in-flight visibility, such as landing into the sun, and how it may affect overall performance. Okay, so the pilot has to consider human factors also. Additionally, surface vehicles, aircraft being taxied by maintenance, may also be participating in LASO, especially in those operations that involve crossing an active runway. Okay, that means wherever there is runway and taxiway intersection, you may witness vehicles moving. Okay, aircraft being taxied by maintenance personnel, etc. So be vigilant. So this is all the information I have about lasso. Now the question: what is the rule for a pilot receiving a lasso clearance? The pilot is required to accept the clearance? No, he is not required. The pilot must accept, again wrong. The pilot has the option to accept or reject. Yes. So option C is right. Next. When turning onto a taxiway from another taxiway, the taxiway directional sign indicates what? So if you have already flown or you are a student pilot right now, you will know the answer to this question. If you haven't flown, no worries. You are taxiing on taxiway Alpha. Currently, this aircraft is situated on taxiway A, Alpha. And you can see this A written here. So the taxiway that you are situated on will be written on black color background. Next, there is a Charlie taxiway to your left hand side. So you have Charlie written here, but the background color is yellow, and the alphabets and arrows are in black. So different from this. So this A is your location sign, the location, taxiway location, Alpha. Charlie is location of this taxiway, and this arrow is the direction, that is left of this taxiway Alpha. Next, This taxiway alpha continues straight ahead but a little to the right hand side. So you have taxiway alpha in front of you, a little right hand side arrow. Then you have this taxiway Charlie again to the right hand side of taxiway alpha. So that is also shown as a location sign and a directional sign. So the direction arrows point to the new taxiway. Okay, so the correct answer will be when turning onto a taxiway from another taxiway. So when you are turning from Alpha taxiway to taxiway Charlie or to this taxiway Charlie or to a new taxiway Alpha, so that means uh, designation. Designation means this Charlie, Alpha, Alpha, Charlie. Designation and direction of taxiway leading out of an intersection. Leading out of. So this is the intersection point of all these three taxiways. So taxiway leading out of this intersection is shown by the arrows. Okay, remember. The no entry sign indicates what? An area that doesn't continue beyond intersection, a paved area where aircraft entry is prohibited, exit boundary for runway. So correct answer is no entry sign means no entry. Entry is prohibited. Okay, so it is shown like this. No entry. You may find this no entry signs on taxiways which are only one way. Okay, or even on ground, on roads, we have one way road. Okay, so similarly at airports, if there is any taxiway which should be used in only one direction and not the reverse direction, you will find no entry sign there. If there is any movement area for vehicles, so you will find no entry sign there, so that ground vehicles do not enter runway or taxiway, and aircraft do not enter the road or the pavement made for ground vehicles. So you will find no entry area there also, no entry sign. So another example, no entry sign here. Next, runway hold position markings on the taxiway means what? Runway hold position. Identifies where aircraft hold short of the runway. Identifies area where aircraft are prohibited. Wrong. Allows aircraft permission onto the runway. So the so this is the runway hold short markings. Two continuous yellow lines towards the taxiway. Broken lines towards the runway. Remember this for your Viva exam. So the correct answer will be identifies aircraft to hold short of the runway. Okay. Runway hold position sign doesn't necessarily allow an aircraft permission. Permission is granted by ATC. Okay. So the hold position marking only identifies the place where aircraft must hold short. That's it. Runway hold position sign denotes intersecting runways, an entrance to runway from a taxiway, an area protected for aircraft approaching a runway. So the correct option is option alpha. Now runway hold position. So now we have just read about lasso operations. Over there we saw some pictures in which there may be holding position markings when there are two intersecting runways, one runway intersecting with another taxiway. So runway hold position sign will be can be on intersecting runways and also on runway intersecting with a taxiway. So option A is the most appropriate answer here. Option C is wrong, irrelevant. Option B is wrong because it says an entrance to a runway from a taxiway. So runway hold position, that is not the purpose of runway hold position. Okay. So intersecting runways is where you will find this runway hold position. Okay. Next. So intersecting runways, you see this runway hold position. Okay. Ground markings yellow, the signs red and white. Okay. Additionally, there can also be lighting, ground lightings. Okay. So yeah, very important lecture and interesting questions, practical questions. So I hope you have understood this lecture. You have learned something new today. You have added something new to your knowledge reservoir. So I hope I have done that successfully. Do watch this lecture again, practice these questions, practice more questions like this based on this format, based on this topic. Okay, read IFR books, many resources on IFR. Read as much as you can on IFR because most of airline flying is based on IFR. So read that content profusely and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Share this video with your friends, colleagues, and like this video lecture. I'll be glad if you do that. I wish you all the best. I thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next quiz lecture. Don't miss that. Don't miss other lectures as well also. All the best.